Coming up on today's Airborne, an amazing 49 plane formation. Vern Raburn is back, and the EAA declines the FAA's exemption for young eagles. Welcome to Airborne on Aero-TV. I'm Ashley Hale. In the past, it's not been uncommon for military training flights to make flybys over large public events during the singing of the national anthem. However, government cutbacks have put a damper on these activities. So a group of advanced RV pilots decided to put on the opening show at a football game in support of breast cancer awareness. And best of all, they titled their project Government Not Required. The group flew 49 RV airplanes streaming pink smoke over Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City to open the Chiefs playing the 49ers football game. And the formation was in the shape of an arrowhead. The group, called KC Flight, is based in Lee's Summit Airport in Missouri, but flyers from 19 other states join in the project. KC Flight said it would take the Guinness Book of World Records organization up to 6 weeks to confirm that a new record had been set for an RV formation flight. But with the previous record set at 37 planes, they ought to be a shoo-in. Titan Aerospace, a producer of solar-powered atmospheric satellites called atmosats, has announced that Vern Raburn has joined the company as chairman and CEO. Seen as an accomplished high-technology and aerospace leader, Titan says Raburn will bring an invaluable blend of real-world experience in business development, technology innovation, and market creation. Titan designs and manufactures atmosats, a new type of unmanned aerial vehicle that does the work of near-Earth satellites at a fraction of the cost. In August, Titan unveiled its first atmosat platform, Solera. Unlike traditional satellites, Solera is far less expensive to buy and fly, and it can easily be brought back for maintenance or payload upgrades. Titan's solar-powered atmosats offer long endurance, staying aloft for 1 to 5 years, depending on the payload. Prior to joining Titan, Raburn was most recently founder and CEO of Eclipse Aviation, creator of the VLJ market, and manufacturer of the Eclipse 500 jet. While piloting a radio-controlled model aircraft, the operator, whose name is Raphael Pirker, but who is known as Trappy, has been cited by the FAA as being the pilot in command of the aircraft and for not possessing an FAA pilot certificate. While this may sound a bit odd, the FAA has stated their case and fined Mr. Pirker $10,000. The FAA charged that Mr. Pirker operated the aircraft with a camera aboard that sent real-time video to the ground, and that the flight was performed for compensation, that he operated the aircraft at altitudes of approximately 10 feet to approximately 400 feet over the University of Virginia in a careless or reckless manner so as to endanger the life or property of another. The charges included 11 examples of recklessness, and this case may be important in defining the difference between legitimate recreational model aviation and the use of model-like vehicles for commercial use in federally regulated airspace. This case is up for review at the NTSB, and we'll be watching how this plays out on ANN. Well, it's all over YouTube. All you do is put some dry ice in a soda bottle, screw on the lid, and wait for a big bang. And if it's on YouTube, it must be okay, right? Well, not exactly. An airport ground service worker has been arrested in connection with 2 dry ice bomb incidents at Los Angeles International Airport. The worker is being held on $1 million bond on one charge of possession of an explosive or destructive device near an aircraft. The worker has been identified as 28-year-old DeCarlo Bennett. One dry ice bomb exploded in an employee restroom Sunday, and 2 other plastic bottles containing dry ice were discovered and disabled before they exploded Monday in the Tom Bradley International Terminal. The explosion forced a brief shutdown and evacuation of Terminal 2 at LAX. No further information about the subject or a possible motive has been released by Los Angeles police. The 21st annual Beshear Skyfest in Augusta, Georgia, scheduled for October 19th through the 20th, has been rescheduled for April 26th through the 27th of next year. The show has been postponed due to the partial government shutdown, which includes parts of the FAA. In order to have an air show with aerobatic performances, an air show waiver is required. Organizers of the event say that the waiver for the Beshear Skyfest is still at the FAA's office. The executive committee for the air show said Beshear Skyfest was advertised as an air show and no waiver means no air show. The committee added, quote, "This community deserves the show that has been advertised," end quote. To that end, the executive committee made the decision to postpone the event until next spring. The EAA has notified the FAA that it's declining a partial grant of exemption that would have allowed Young Eagles and Eagle Flight pilots to obtain reimbursement for fuel cost. The concept of reimbursement for fuel used during the worthwhile charitable flights is good, but the devil is in the FAA's fine print. The proposed exemption mandated record-keeping, coordination, and notification requirements that would have required complete restructuring of the program with enormous time and expense burdens, according to Sean Elliott, EAA's Vice President of Advocacy and Safety. Elliott said the Young Eagle and Eagle Flight programs' restructuring and record-keeping requirements made it unworkable. The exemption even precluded experimental amateur-built aircraft from receiving fuel cost reimbursements. Is it possible that the FAA doesn't understand what the EAA is all about? How can things get so complicated for a simple issue like donated fuel for charitable flights? Thank you very much, FAA, but no thanks. Redbird Skyport in San Marcos, Texas, chose to end their extraordinary $1 per gallon AvGas sale earlier this month when they were overwhelmed by demand. However, the $1 deal is still alive if you're participating in the Society of Aviation Flight Educators, known as SAFE's, Pilot Proficiency Project. SAFE's October 26th through the 27th Pilot Proficiency Program in San Marcos is the first ever general aviation proficiency project to include time in Redbird's advanced motion flight simulators. The simulators will run from morning till night both days to accommodate all participants. Seminars available will include angle of attack awareness by Rich Stowell, tailwheel tips and tricks with Stowell and SAFE's executive director Doug Stewart, iPad best practices for flight planning with Kay Greenfield, and a 3-hour single pilot IFR seminar with Stewart. Discounted registration for the SAFE San Marcos PPP ends October 23rd. You're watching Airborne, more in a moment.
Since the early days of powered flight, pilots have struggled with landing in crosswinds and learning proper crosswind landing techniques. Even today, most crosswind landing skills are learned through trial and error, sometimes with disastrous results. Believe it or not, the most common contributing factor in weather-related accidents each year is crosswinds. The second most common factor is wind gusts. In fact, crosswinds and wind gusts cause more landing accidents than fog, thunderstorms, and icing combined. That's where the Redbird X-Wind SE comes in. It teaches pilots the proper techniques to meet and beat these top 2 causes of weather-related landing accidents. By placing pilots in gusty crosswind conditions for extended periods of time, the X-Wind SE gives instructors all the time they need to teach the pilot the proper techniques for landing in challenging crosswind conditions. For more information on Redbird flight simulations, the Redbird X-Wind SE, and Redbird's entire line of flight training devices, visit www.redbirdflightsimulations.com.
Welcome back. If you'd like to suggest a story for Airborne, Aero-TV, our website, or our podcast, drop us an email to news-by@aero-news.net. 1 year ago Monday, Colonel Joe Kittinger and the rest of the Red Bull Stratos team were glued to the mission control monitors as Felix Baumgartner became the first human ever to break the sound barrier with his own body. That night, they celebrated the historic achievement with Baumgartner, and now they have reunited to commemorate the first anniversary of this historic event. Red Bull Stratos was the flight test program that riveted the world last fall, as Baumgartner ascended 24 miles above Earth under a massive helium balloon. Wearing only a spacesuit, he jumped from the balloon's capsule and accelerated from 0 to 844 miles per hour. That's 1.25 Mach, in just 50 seconds before eventually parachuting to the ground. Red Bull has released a video documentary titled Mission to the Edge of Space, the inside story of Red Bull Stratos. And this engrossing video is now available to stream for free. The video is touted as showing the real human drama, and it shows that projects can be accomplished even though some things go wrong along the way. Well, Fridays only mean one thing here at ANN, and that's that it's time for this week's Barnstorming. This week, Jim has had some thoughts on aviation's most regrettable behaviors, starting first with the well-worn phrase, "Well, that's the way we've always done it." Here's this week's Barnstorming.
Thanks, Ashley, and hi, folks. Well, we're a few days back from the AOPA Summit, the last one for quite some time, if at all, from what we understand, to be replaced by a series of regional events, and we're not quite sure how that's all going to work, but AOPA under Mark Baker is still a pretty mysterious property. We had an interesting time at the summit. It was somewhat poorly attended, as expected, both from a standpoint of being a new location and the fact that it was the last one, and a lot of people didn't see much of a reason to go to a last one. Floor activity was interesting, but sparse. Airport activity, even more sparse. And on the last day, reasonable amount of activity, but not much in comparison to that we've seen before. What was particularly interesting for this trip, however, was the fact that we went in early and went to their little flight training summit, also somewhat sparsely attended, opened by Adam Smith, who always has some interesting things to say, and more important, the bona fides to say it with. I spoke up a couple of times, and what was interesting was not the fact that we got a positive reception for our remarks, but strangely enough, it seemed to so many people it's like things they'd never heard before. I remarked a couple of times that in particular, the biggest enemy in aviation was the phrase, "Well, that's the way we've always done it." And over again, when you talk, especially in the flight training industry and the flight schools, they're so in love with this concept, well, this is how it's done, that they don't think about how it might be done. It was interesting to note that people were talking about, well, once a guy or a gal gets a license, there's not much to do. And I popped up and said, well, wait a second, folks, I've got a horrendous amount of flight time, something along the lines of 18,000 hours. And I can't even count the amount of things I haven't done yet in aviation that I want to do. Just getting a license is the end of everything? Baloney. The license is the beginning of an adventure. There's so many things to do. I can scarcely count the number of items that there is to choose from in regards to all the things that you could do once you're a real live pilot. I don't understand this. The other thing, too, is some interesting discussions about marketing, and this was a remark that I heard time and time again about how hard it was, and flight instructors were their front line. They may be the front line in the standpoint of training and so forth, as they should be, but I got to tell you something. When you've got a flight instructor who doesn't understand marketing, doesn't understand salesmanship, often is poorly dressed for the role and poorly versed to be able to explain it as your front line in how to sell flight instruction to people, then you've got a real problem. And one of the things I think we need to be doing is looking at how flight schools sell themselves and either train their flight instructors or find somebody who literally can sell a flight instruction package and tell people, well, this is how you get a license, and then this is what you can do with it. All the many wonderful things. These are just a couple of remarks, a couple of things that came up along the way. It's really bizarre that, to a certain extent, a lot of these people were talking about, well, great remarks, Jim. They're not my remarks. These are things I've heard over and over and over. This is nothing new. Folks, the enemy of aviation truly is, well, that's the way we've always done it, because we've never thought about how, truly, we might do it differently. And if we don't do it soon, there won't be an aviation to reimagine. For the Aero-News Network, Airborne, and Aero-TV, I'm Jim Campbell. We'll see you next week.
The partial government shutdown that shut most of NASA has thrown a monkey wrench into plans for an unpowered test flight of Sierra Nevada Corporation's Dream Chaser spaceplane. The test had been planned for October 5th, but with the Dryden Flight Research Center at Edwards Air Force Base in California closed by the partial shutdown, the Dream Chaser remains firmly on the ground with no test currently scheduled. Mark Sarangelo, Corporate Vice President and Head of Sierra Nevada Corporation's Space Systems, said the aircraft is primed to take its test, but right now they're waiting for clearance to go ahead. The first Dream Chaser test vehicle has completed several ground tests and completed a flight test readiness review. On August 22nd, a 2-hour captive carry test was performed with the space plane suspended below an Erickson Air Crane helicopter. ANN will keep you posted when flight testing gets started again. The Australian budget carrier Jetstar has issued an apology for a message that was written in airport barcode stickers, arranged to spell words on a passenger's luggage. The passenger, who was traveling from Perth to Brisbane in Australia, found "I am gay" spelled out on the outside of his suitcase when it appeared at baggage claim. The passenger, who was not named, sent a photo of the vandalized luggage out on a social media site. He later posted that he doesn't know anyone who may have been handling luggage for Jetstar, but did mention that his flight was delayed by over an hour. For what it's worth, the passenger said that he is straight and married and a father of 2. Well, that's our program. Remember, you can get comprehensive, real-time, 24/7 coverage of the latest aviation and aerospace stories anytime at aero-news.net. And join us again next week as we cover the NBAA Convention and Trade Show in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Ashley Hale. Thanks for watching.